Jackson had always thought of himself as brave. He had faced storms, alien jungles, and political chaos on faraway colonies, but nothing prepared him for Cathara. As the shuttle's landing gear touched the soft, glowing soil, he felt his heart hammer. The air smelled sharp, like metal mixed with flowers he had never known. Trees towered above him, their trunks twisting like they were alive, and the ground beneath him pulsed faintly with light, as if the planet itself were breathing. He stepped off the shuttle and immediately felt eyes on him. Dozens of forms moved in the shadows, slender, muscular shapes with fur that shimmered in the alien sun. Their tails lashed softly behind them, and their golden eyes shone with intelligence and caution. Jackson swallowed, remembering the briefing. The Catharans are proud, territorial, and suspicious of humans. Any wrong move could start a war. He had never been good with first impressions. A figure emerged from the trees, a massive Beastwoman. Her fur a rich bronze, her claws long and sharp, her eyes glowing like molten gold. She moved without sound, graceful yet commanding, every step radiating power. Jackson froze, unsure whether to bow, retreat, or speak. She stopped just a few feet away, sniffing the air. Then she looked at him, tilting her head, her ears flicking in curiosity. Jackson swallowed his fear. He forced a small smile. I come in peace. I want to learn. I want to understand you. Her lips curled slightly. He wasn't sure if it was a smile or a threat. Then she stepped closer, and he could feel the heat radiating from her body. The translator crackled to life, converting her guttural clicks into rough English. You, outsider here, not yet trusted. Jackson nodded. I understand. I'll follow your rules. I'll do whatever it takes to gain trust. For a long moment she said nothing. Then with a swish of her tail she lowered her head. A tongue flicked out and brushed lightly against his hand. Jackson jumped, startled, but didn't pull away. The villagers had warned him. Bonding rituals were physical, sometimes shocking to humans, but they carried meaning. And right now, this gesture meant something important. He felt a strange warmth spread through his chest. It was not fear and it was not danger, it was connection. For the first time in his life, Jackson realized that sometimes the deepest trust was shown through actions, not words. He didn't fully understand the ritual yet. But he knew one thing. This was his first step into a world that would change him forever. The Beastwoman, whose name he learned was Vela, circled him slowly, sniffing the air again. The other villagers emerged from the shadows, tall, elegant, powerful, and formed a wide circle around him. Their eyes were wary, but they weren't hostile. The translator hummed again. To live among us, outsider must prove courage, must show heart. Jackson's mind raced. Courage, heart. He had plenty of the first. But the second, he wasn't sure humans could ever match a species so intimately connected to its emotions, its rituals, its land. But he would try. He had no choice. He wanted to belong here. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the plains. Vela crouched slightly, her golden eyes locked on his. Her tail swished slowly, deliberately, and then she stepped forward, brushing her tongue across his chest once more. It was softer this time, less shocking, almost gentle. Jackson's chest tightened. He felt a bond forming, fragile but undeniable. The villagers murmured, a sound like wind over stone, approving in their own way. Jackson realized he wasn't an intruder anymore. He was being tested, yes, but he was also being welcomed. He had crossed the first threshold, and though the world of Cathara was wild, alien, and dangerous, he felt alive. For the first time in years, Jackson smiled without hesitation. The adventure he had dreamed of, the challenge he had longed for, had begun. Not in the stars, not in a war room, but here in the glow of alien plains, with a Beastwoman who had chosen in her own strange way to trust him. And that trust, Jackson knew, was a gift he would honor with every heartbeat. Jackson woke to the soft light of Cathara's twin suns rising over the alien plains. The air shimmered with warmth, carrying scents he had never known. Sweet, sharp, and alive. Vela was already awake, standing tall at the edge of the village, her golden eyes scanning the horizon. She turned when she sensed him and tilted her head slightly, a silent reminder that today was important. Today he would take the next step, the ritual that bound an outsider to the Catharans. He followed her through the village, careful not to stumble over the glowing roots and soft soil. The villagers had gathered, forming a wide circle, their eyes fixed on him. There was a hum in the air, low and melodic like the vibration of the planet itself. Jackson could feel the weight of their gaze, not hostile but curious, questioning, waiting to see if he was worthy. Bela crouched in the center, signaling him to approach. His heart thumped loudly, echoing in his chest. He had faced alien jungles and hostile worlds before, but nothing had made him feel so exposed, so vulnerable. He had to trust these beings completely, and more than that, he had to trust himself. The translator crackled to life, conveying their words. To bond, to seal the promise, lick the chosen. That is how we show trust. That is how we live together. Jackson blinked. He had heard rumors of Catharan customs, but this was unlike anything human. His mind hesitated. Lick the chosen? He felt the sweat beat on his forehead. But Vela's eyes, warm yet firm, held a question. Do you trust me? Do you trust us? He swallowed hard, remembering why he had come. Not for fame, not for knowledge alone, but for connection, for belonging. For the chance to prove that humanity could rise above fear and bridge worlds, slowly, carefully. He knelt before her, lowering himself to their level. Bela stepped closer, her massive form towering yet protective. She sniffed the air around him, then flicked her tongue gently against his chest. A shock of sensation ran through him, foreign, intimate, grounding. The villagers murmured softly, approving the first step. Jackson steadied himself, focusing on the trust flowing between them. It wasn't just a gesture. It was a language of loyalty, of acceptance, of shared strength. He felt something change inside him. Fear melted into courage, hesitation into certainty. The warmth from her touch spread through his body, and he realized he was no longer an outsider merely watching this world. He was becoming part of it. He could feel the pulse of the land, the rhythm of the village, and the quiet, unspoken approval of each beastwoman surrounding him. Vela circled him slowly, her tail brushing the ground like a metronome, measuring his resolve. Then she crouched again, pressing closer, letting her tongue touch his shoulder this time. It was longer, firmer, and Jackson understood. The bond was deepening. His heart pounded, but not from fear. From wonder, from awe, from the realization that he was trusted, chosen, welcomed in a way no human had ever experienced before. Hours seemed to pass in moments. The ritual continued with quiet gestures, touches, scents, whispers, and clicks and growls that the translator struggled to convert. Each movement was precise, intentional, and filled with meaning. Jackson began to understand the rhythm of their culture. Trust was earned, but once given, it was unbreakable. And now he was part of it. Finally, Vela stepped back, her eyes locking onto his. The villagers let out a soft chorus, their sounds echoing over the plains. The translator spoke one final time. Bond sealed. Heart open. You are one with us. Jackson exhaled, feeling a weight lift from his chest. Tears pricked his eyes, not from fear or pain, but from joy. He had crossed the threshold. He was no longer an outsider, a human intruder. He was a trusted member of the clan, bound to their world, their hearts, and their code. Vela nudged him gently, her eyes shining. Jackson smiled back, feeling a warmth deeper than anything he had known. The ritual was over, but its effect would last forever. He had found his place in a world unlike any other. A world that had tested him, challenged him, and now welcomed him completely. For the first time, Jackson understood what it truly meant to belong. And as he looked out over the glowing plains with Vela at his side, he knew this was only the beginning. Jackson had barely slept. Even though the ritual was complete and the bond with Vela sealed, his mind could not rest. The plains of Cathara were alive with color and sound, but beneath that beauty lurked danger. Scouts had returned that morning, their faces grim, reporting that human mining ships were approaching the sacred riverbanks. Machines, heavy and unfeeling, were cutting through the heart of the Catharans' land. Vela's fur bristled as she listened to the news. Her golden eyes glinted with a mixture of anger and worry. She turned to Jackson, her gaze steady and demanding. You, human, can help? The translator hummed out her words, each syllable heavy with expectation. Jackson swallowed hard. He had trained for survival, for diplomacy, for observation, but he had never imagined standing in battle alongside a species that had just taught him their most intimate ritual. Could he rise to the challenge? Could he protect the ones who had trusted him so completely? He nodded firmly. Yes, I'll do everything I can. The village elders murmured among themselves, their approval cautious but present. They had seen humans before, mostly destructive, careless, but they had also seen something different in Jackson, something worth trusting. Now was the moment to prove it. Vela led him through the village, pointing out key positions, the watchtowers, the hidden paths, the river channels. Every detail mattered. Every decision could mean life or death. Jackson felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Yet beneath the tension, he felt something else. Connection. He was no longer alone in this fight. He had Vela at his side, and her clan accepted him. Together, they were stronger than he had ever been. As the twin suns climbed higher, the horizon darkened with the shapes of approaching ships. The ground shook beneath their weight. Jackson could see humans, men and women in sleek exosuits, machines that spat fire and iron, marching into what they thought was an empty, defenseless land. They had no idea what waited for them. The Catharans moved with fluid precision. Their claws raked the ground, their tails whipping in warning signals. Jackson followed their lead, using his human knowledge to sabotage the machines, disable their sensors, and mislead the invaders. Each time he glanced at Vela, she was there, moving like a predator and protector at once, her golden eyes never leaving him. The trust between them, forged in the ritual, gave him courage he didn't know he possessed. The first clash was sudden and violent. A mining drone lunged at a young Catharan scout. Jackson reacted instantly, leaping in front of the creature and smashing the drone's core with a stolen human tool. Vela's roar echoed across the plains, rallying the clan. They surged forward as one, swift and precise, cutting off the human's advance without harming them unnecessarily. Jackson realized then the full meaning of the bond he had formed. The ritual, the lick, the acceptance, it wasn't just symbolic. It was a bridge between species, a connection that allowed him to fight not as a stranger but as family. Every movement, every decision was guided by instinct, empathy, and trust. Hours passed in a blur of strategy, coordination, and near misses. By evening, the invading fleet had retreated, their machines damaged, their pride wounded. The Catharans roared in triumph, their victory both fierce and joyful. Jackson stood among them, breathless, covered in dust and sweat, and yet profoundly alive. Vela stepped beside him, her fur brushing against his arm. For the first time, she allowed something that looked almost like pride to shine in her eyes. Jackson smiled, feeling an overwhelming mixture of relief, exhilaration, and belonging. He had not only survived the day, he had proven that humans could rise to the challenge, that they could honor, trust, and protect what they loved. As the sun dipped behind the glowing plains, Jackson knew one thing for certain. The bond with Vela and her people was more than ritual. It was a promise, and he would fight, live, and belong in this alien world for as long as he drew breath. The next morning, the plains of Cathara were tense. Smoke from the previous day's retreat hung low, curling like restless spirits over the glowing grass. Jackson tightened his grip on the human tools he had learned to use. Simple weapons, but clever in the hands of someone who understood both human technology and Catharan instinct. Today the humans would return, and this time they would not hesitate. Vela approached silently, her golden eyes glowing with purpose. "Together," she said simply, her gaze fixed on him. The translator confirmed the word, "together." Jackson nodded, feeling the power of their bond surge through him. Whatever came next, they would face it side by side. As the first human drones appeared on the horizon, the Catharans moved like shadows. Their claws scraped the ground, tails whipping with precision, and their eyes reflected both strategy and raw instinct. Jackson felt fear flare, but it quickly transformed into focus. He was part of this world now, a bridge between two species, and bridges were meant to hold even under the weight of danger. The clash began without warning. Machines roared and fired, but the Catharans were faster, smarter than the humans anticipated. Vela lunged, her claws cutting through metal with terrifying precision, her tail knocking drones off balance. Jackson moved with her, using human tools to disable engines, cut power lines, and misdirect the enemy. Every glance he shared with Vela was a silent conversation. Trust, instinct, courage, and care all wrapped into one. A drone spun toward a young beastling, sparks flying. Without thinking, Jackson threw himself in front of it, knocking it aside with a sharp, well-aimed strike. Vela was instantly at his side, growling, her eyes flashing. For a heartbeat, they moved as one, human and Beastwoman, synchronizing their actions with unspoken understanding. Jackson felt a thrill he had never known, the perfect harmony of instinct and intellect, trust and bravery. Hours blurred into a dance of chaos. The humans underestimated the Catharans and their new human ally. Jackson guided traps, calculated weak points, and improvised defenses, while the Beastwomen struck with precision. He realized humanity's strength was not just in machines or technology, but in courage and creativity, in the willingness to fight not for conquest but for protection. Vela glanced at him mid-battle, a spark of pride in her eyes. He nodded back, understanding completely. The bond they had sealed in the ritual gave him courage. Her trust gave him purpose. Every strike they made, every move they coordinated, was a testament to what two species could achieve together when fear was replaced by understanding. By evening, the battlefield fell silent. The human invaders had fled, their machines damaged and their morale shattered. The Catharans roared in victory, a sound that shook the glowing plains, a song of triumph, pride, and relief. Jackson, breathing heavily, stood among them, feeling the weight of exhaustion and exhilaration in equal measure. He had survived. He had protected his new family. He had proven that humanity could rise to meet the wild, the alien, and the unknown, not with domination but with courage and heart. Vela approached, brushing her fur against his arm. "You strong," she said, her voice almost tender. The translator repeated it. Jackson smiled, realizing that he had not only earned her trust but had earned respect, not through force alone but through shared effort, courage, and the willingness to understand. As the twin suns set, painting the sky with streaks of violet and gold, Jackson felt a profound sense of belonging. The plains of Cathara were alive, wild, and dangerous, but they were his home now, in a way he had never imagined. And with Vela at his side, he knew that humanity had not just survived this alien world. Humanity had become part of it. The bond, sealed with trust and a ritual that had once seemed strange and frightening, had carried him through fire and fear. And it would guide him through everything yet to come. The plains of Cathara were quiet now, the tension of battle replaced by a gentle hum of life. Birds with glowing feathers soared overhead, and the rivers shimmered like liquid silver in the twin suns. Jackson walked slowly beside Vela, still feeling the burn of the day's battle in his muscles. His heart, however, felt lighter than it had in years. The bond he shared with Vela and her clan had deepened beyond the ritual, beyond trust. It had become something he could feel in every pulse of his body. Vela led him to a cliff that overlooked the sprawling plains, the river cutting through the landscape like a ribbon of light. She crouched, her golden eyes fixed on the horizon, and nudged him gently. Her gesture was simple, but it carried the weight of a question. "Do you understand now?" Jackson took a deep breath, recalling the ritual, the first flick of her tongue against his hand, the way she had circled him, the warmth and shock of each touch. At first he had been terrified, unsure how to respond, but now he realized it was never about fear. It was about connection, about showing complete trust and acceptance, body and soul. The lick was not a shock, it was a promise. It was a way of saying, "You belong. You are part of us." "I think I understand now," Jackson said softly. "It's not just a gesture. It's a bond, a promise, a way of saying we trust each other fully and that trust cannot be broken." Vela tilted her head, ears flicking in thought. The translator repeated, "Yes, heart open. Trust sealed. You belong." He smiled, feeling a warmth that went beyond pride or relief. It was connection. It was acceptance. It was home. In that moment, Jackson understood the beauty of the Catharan way. Their rituals were not just traditions. They were the very foundation of their society, of their lives, of the way they loved, fought, and protected each other. Hours passed as they sat on the cliff, watching the glowing plain stretch endlessly below them. The wind carried scents of wildflowers and rain-soaked earth, mixing with the tang of the battle that had ended just yesterday. Jackson realized how alien this world had once seemed, and how fully it had welcomed him now. He was no longer a visitor. He was part of the pulse of Cathara, part of its rhythm, part of its heart. Vela nudged him again, this time brushing her tongue gently across his cheek, a soft, familiar gesture. Jackson laughed softly, the sound mingling with the whispers of the wind. He understood now that the bond was not just a formality. It was a living thing, something that grew stronger through action, through courage, through care. The ritual had started it, but the shared battle, the shared trust, and the shared quiet moments like this one had sealed it. "You're different," Vela said quietly, her voice almost a whisper. The translator repeated it. "Different, human, strong in ways we did not expect." Jackson felt a surge of emotion. Pride, yes, but deeper than that. Gratitude, belonging, love. In a world that had once seemed impossible to enter, he had found his place not by taking, not by conquering, but by earning trust, showing courage, and opening his heart. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in deep purples and fiery oranges. Jackson looked at Vela, at the plains, at the clan that had accepted him as one of their own. He knew this was only the beginning of his journey. There would be challenges, dangers, and battles ahead, but now he understood something that would guide him always. Trust is more powerful than fear, courage stronger than doubt, and bonds forged in heart and action could transcend any difference, even between human and beastwoman. He reached out and touched Vela's fur, a simple gesture of gratitude, of love, of belonging. She nudged him gently in response, and for the first time Jackson felt truly at home. Not on Earth, not among humans, but here, on Cathara, with the beastwomen, with Vela, with a heart and a bond that would last forever. And in that quiet, glowing world, Jackson knew he had found something greater than victory. He had found connection. He had found family. He had found himself. The days on Cathara passed with a rhythm that was at once wild and comforting. Jackson woke with the twin suns, hunted with the young warriors, and learned the hidden paths of the glowing forests. Every day Vela was at his side, guiding him, correcting him when he stumbled, and praising him when he succeeded. The bond they had forged in the ritual and cemented in battle had grown deeper, turning from trust into friendship, from friendship into something more subtle, something unspoken but undeniable. Jackson began to understand the language of the Catharans, not just their clicks and growls, but the meaning in their movements, their stances, their tail flicks. Every gesture had weight, every glance carried information. It was a world of connection that humans often missed, but he was learning quickly. The more he immersed himself, the more he realized the strength of this alien culture. Strength built not only on courage and instinct, but on loyalty, trust, and love. Children, young beastlings, began to follow him wherever he went. They mimicked his awkward human movements, tried to imitate his clumsy leaps, and giggled when he fell on soft, glowing moss. At first he had been embarrassed, but their laughter was pure and joyful, and it filled him with warmth. He began to feel protective, not just of Vela or the elders, but of the entire clan, from the smallest child to the oldest warrior. He was part of their world now, a human among beast women, and he loved it. Vela often watched him during these moments, her golden eyes softening. She would nudge him gently with her head or brush her tongue across his arm, a reminder of their bond, a subtle affirmation that he belonged. Each gesture carried more meaning than words ever could. Jackson found himself smiling more than he had in years, feeling a sense of peace and joy that was foreign to humans living in their cities of steel and noise. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the glowing plains, Jackson and Vela sat by the river that wound through the village. The water shimmered under the moonlight, reflecting their forms. Jackson watched the children play, their laughter echoing across the water, and he felt something he had never felt before: complete belonging. Vela nudged him closer, brushing her tail against his arm. She tilted her head, her golden eyes holding a silent question. The translator whispered, "Together, always together." Jackson placed his hand on her fur, feeling the warmth, the strength, the life of this remarkable creature. "Yes," he said softly, "together." In that moment, he realized that humanity's greatest strength was not technology, not weapons, not even sheer numbers. It was the ability to trust, to care, to form bonds that transcended differences. Here on Cathara, he had witnessed humans and alien beings working together not as masters and subjects, but as equals, united by courage and heart. It was a revelation, one that filled him with pride and purpose. The elders often spoke to him in clicks and growls, which the translator rendered as respect. "You fight like one of us. You think like one of us. You are one of us." Jackson felt the weight of those words settle on his chest, heavy but wonderful. He was no longer an outsider. He was a protector, a friend, a member of this alien family. As night fell and the stars glittered above Cathara, Jackson and Vela lay on the soft moss, watching the moons drift slowly across the sky. He reached for her paw, feeling the pulse of life in her fur, and she responded by resting her head against his chest. Together they listened to the hum of the plains, the distant calls of creatures, and the gentle river flowing by. Jackson realized that life on Cathara was not easy. It was wild, dangerous, and unpredictable, but it was alive, filled with connection, meaning, and love. And for the first time in his life, he felt truly alive. He belonged here. With Vela, with the clan, with this world that had once seemed impossible to enter. He had crossed the threshold, survived the trials, and embraced a life that humans could barely imagine. And as he held Vela close, feeling the warmth of her fur and the strength of their bond, he knew this was where he was meant to be, not on Earth, not among humans, but here, on Cathara, among the Beastwomen, part of something greater than himself. Years passed on Cathara, yet for Jackson, time felt different here. Days bled into nights, moons rose and set, and the plains remained alive with their strange glowing rhythms. He had grown stronger, wiser, and more connected to this world than he could have imagined when he first stepped off the shuttle. He was no longer the outsider who had trembled before Vela and her clan. He was family, a protector, a part of the heartbeat of Cathara itself. Every morning, he awoke to the calls of the beastlings, the rustle of tails, the soft hum of the glowing soil beneath his feet. Vela was always beside him, her golden eyes bright with purpose and warmth. Their bond, once sealed with a strange ceremonial lick, had deepened into something beyond ritual. It had become trust, understanding, and loyalty. Through every challenge, every battle, every quiet moment of reflection, they had forged a partnership that was unbreakable. But Cathara was not always peaceful. Scouts still reported travelers, some friendly, some with intentions unknown. One day, a human delegation arrived, expecting to survey the planet and exploit its resources. They were confident, armed with technology that had dominated other worlds, but they had underestimated what humanity could achieve when it acted with courage and heart. Jackson stood at the edge of the village, Vela at his side. He met the delegation's leader's gaze, and in that moment he realized how far he had come. Humans often assumed they were masters. That power alone dictated survival. But he had learned something far more valuable. Trust, connection, and courage could transcend worlds. He stepped forward, speaking with calm authority, his voice carrying over the alien plains. This land is not yours to take. You may see a wild planet, but it is alive, and it has people, creatures who protect it, and I am one of them. The humans paused, seeing not just a man, but a bond forged between species. They saw the Catharan standing beside him, fierce and proud, tails lashing, eyes blazing gold. They understood finally that domination would fail here. Respect and courage were stronger than machines. After the delegation left, humbled and awed, Jackson walked with Vela through the glowing fields. The wind carried the scent of flowers, of rain, of life itself. He could hear the clan behind him, the soft whispers of the young ones, the low hum of the elders' clicks. He realized that humanity had not only survived, through him, through courage, through heart, it had thrived. He looked at Vela, brushing her fur gently. "We've come a long way," he said softly. She nudged him with her head, her golden eyes reflecting both pride and affection. The translator whispered, "Yes, you are one of us. You and your kind can be more than they believe." Jackson's chest swelled with emotion. He had started as a stranger, an outsider, uncertain and afraid. Now he stood as a symbol, a proof that humans could rise to the challenge of trust, bravery, and connection in ways that even the most alien species could respect. Cathara had changed him, and he had changed Cathara in return. He knelt beside the river, watching the water shimmer under the moons. Vela pressed her head to his shoulder, and for a moment the world was silent except for the hum of life. Jackson thought of Earth, of the wars and the fear, and he realized that the true strength of humanity was not in conquest, but in heart. It was in choosing to stand together, to protect, to belong. The bond, begun with a simple ritual, had grown into something eternal. He had learned that a lick, a gesture of trust, could transcend species, worlds, and doubt. It was more than ritual. It was a promise, a bridge between hearts. As the moons reflected their silver light on the glowing plains, Jackson and Vela rose, walking together among the clan. Strong, united, unstoppable, the story of the human who earned the trust of a Beastwoman species spread across the stars. A legend of courage, connection, and hope. Jackson smiled, feeling the pulse of life beneath his feet, the warmth of Vela's presence, the heartbeat of an entire world in harmony with his own. Humanity had not only survived on Cathara, it had transcended. And through trust, courage, and love, it had found its place among the stars. For Jackson, for Vela, and for all who shared their bond, there was only one truth. No matter how different, no matter how alien, connection could conquer fear. Together they were more than human, more than Beastwoman. They were unstoppable. And in the glow of Cathara, Jackson finally understood what it meant to belong.